Does this sound like you? You know what you don't want, but have a hard time figuring out what you do want. You could do almost anything, but end up doing next to nothing because you can't decide with certainty what you should do. You're unhappy with where you are, but can't figure out where you would like to be. You tend to let others make the big decisions for you, but deep down, you feel like you might be coasting. You're scared of making the changes that you know you should be making. Let's face it, it's hard being honest with ourselves and thinking about our goals. It's easier to just go with the flow, putting out the little brush fires, the immediate needs of the day. The problem is, when we don't know what we want, we end up giving our time and energy to the people who do know what they want. The truth is, when you know what you want and are committed to that vision for yourself, it becomes easy to say no to the things that don't matter. In fact, it becomes painful to do the things that don't matter and easier to say yes to the things that do. When you have a strong vision for your future, you find the courage to take the steps towards achieving your goal. You start to wake up with a feeling of purpose, and your life begins to feel more alive. So how do we figure out what we want? Most people base their future on their past, and they think that their future is going to be an extension of their present now. The truth is, most people massively underestimate how different their future self will be from their current self. They did this study where they asked a bunch of people to predict how different they thought their future would be in 10 years. They also asked a bunch of people how different their past actually was 10 years ago. What they found is that people vastly underestimated how different their future would be. So why does this matter? People find it easier to remember their past than to predict the future. And because we find it difficult, we don't actually take the time to imagine our future. And because of that, we end up making bad decisions in the now. But when you have a strong picture of your future and act with the future in mind, then your actions in the present are completely different. So instead of leaving it to chance, what if you could connect to a powerful future vision now? Try this. Have a talk with your future self. Imagine writing a letter from your future self to your current self 5 or 10 years in the future. In the letter, tell your current self where you are, what you're doing, and any advice that you'd give to your current self. Remember, we greatly underestimate how different our futures will be. So think big here. Don't limit yourself. Have fun with this. And try not to spend more than 5 or 10 minutes on this exercise. So why is this cool? Why does this matter? When you connect to an inspiring vision of your future self, you let that version of yourself dictate who you're being in the present. The actions and behaviors you take now then reflect what the future self would do. I strongly encourage you to try this exercise. You might be surprised by how much clarity you get in the present moment. If you feel inspired, you can write multiple letters from your future self to your current self. So 5 years in the future, 10 years in the future, 20 years in the future. You get the idea. If you did the exercise, look at what you wrote down. Can you imagine being your future self now? Can you put yourself into that future scene? There's a concept called be, do, have. The idea is to be your future self, do what your future self would do in order to have what your future self has. Interestingly, when you imagine your future self now, you can feel the energy of that and it motivates your actions now. What you might find is that to fully embody the future self, 80% of what you're currently doing, you have to let go of. Think about it. To be your future self, you have to do what they would do. If you were already your future self, you'd already be doing what they'd be doing and having what they have. The exercise that I just shared with you is from this book called Be Your Future Self Now by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. In it, he talks about how to be your future self now, do what they would do, so you can have what they would have. I found this book while I was putting together my coaching program, and I'll talk more about it and other aspects of my program in future videos. In the meantime, subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Sign up for my free newsletter to get deeper onto these topics. And if you're interested in working one-on-one with me to get clarity on your future self and to become the version of yourself who naturally achieves those goals, book a free consultation with me below. The link is in the description.